Okay, good morning. So, unfortunately, and it's kind of sad, even though we had a pretty, I would say, action littered, action full, actionable weekend, the conversation is still continuing worldwide. There is still an ample conversation, I would say, dynamic and disgusting, I would say, but dynamic conversation. And as I said, it's not in the habit of the cherubs to, of course, not to discuss, but also not to coexist with creatures that continuously holding discussions while it is customary in their own planet to electrocute children starting the age of 2 years old and continuously all over their childhood, like both in their houses, in their living rooms, and also at school. It's not something that we do. Of course, not our children, but we do not condone such actions for other children of other people as well. And but yes, humans not only do it, but also, and this I would say not less horrible, continuing the discussion, continuing the conversation. And I've said many times that and that it's not only like kind of like an hyperbole or exaggeration, but it's like literally true that if you have, like, as a nation, if you have 11 carriers, aircraft carriers, that each one is the most sophisticated on Earth, and each one is much stronger alone than almost any other air force of another nation in its entirety. And you have 11 like that, and these 11 do not do like nothing in order to stop electrocution of 2 years old children in their bed. And it's going on for years and for decades. It's not something like one time that should be investigated, like, but it takes place for years. Like, this is a procedure. So if these aircraft carriers do not move like an inch to avoid this from happening, it means that you, like, as the nation, that its flag is hanged like on the top of these like carriers. You constructed this carrier in order for this electrocution to continue. Like, if you have these 11 carriers on Earth, the most, by far, the most powerful like weapons, like machines of wars that ever existed on Earth, they're either there to stop the electrocution of 2 years olds in their sleep, or they are there to facilitate it. There is no other option. And this is, again, it's not just it is not just kind of like theological or metaphorical, like moral stand. This is something very concrete, because there might be other nations much weaker than the United States that presumably, surely they know about the situation, but presumably they cannot. I'm not sure even if it's true, but maybe they think that it's true. Like, so that's why I say presumably from their point of view, they think we would like to stop like this hell, this nightmare, the Israeli nightmare. We would like to stop them, and we actually, we are willing to actually move our arms and legs, not only our mouths and tongues. But presumably we cannot do it not because we're afraid of the Israelis, but because we know very well that the Americans protect them, and the Americans know about the situation more than us, and they do not move an inch. And they have 11 carriers. Each of them are alone much stronger than all our Air Force like combined. And so probably they have like a good reason. Doesn't matter if it's like a moral reason or not, or egoistical reasons, but they have the reasons why the situation should continue. And if we try to stop this situation using force, the Americans will they will kick our ass, because they are much stronger than us. So any other nation which is weaker than the United States, that means all the nations of the earth, might, and I do not even say if this is actually a moral justification. Perhaps it's not. It's completely. It's immoral, but it's understandable. Like, it's where I can understand it. As I've said many times, I do not like subscribe to the notion that if you understand something, then you can forgive it. No, not at all. For me, it's just the opposite. If I do not understand anything, I cannot judge. How can I condemn something if I do not understand what's going on? I need to understand something. In order for me to say this is morally positive or morally negative thing. So I do not say that this is the moral justification. Just say that it is understandable that because 11 aircraft carriers currently swim in the oceans of this world, not really, because actually less than half actually do it, because there are always some in upgrade and some are in port. But yes, 11 such juggernauts exist and potentially are active on Earth right now. Each of them so powerful. And of course, each of them arrives with a carrier group, which in itself is stronger than each carrier group, even without the carrier, just the group is way more powerful than the entire Israeli Navy. Just for reference, each carrier group, the entourage of the carrier, the secondary, the secondary ships that that are the entourage of the super carrier that comes with her, that are besides her, almost all the time. So each of these groups, without the carrier and without the aircrafts that are on the carrier, just the surrounding group in itself, each of these, and there are 11 such like this, is stronger than the entire Israeli Navy, and is stronger than many other navies of this world. Just so you understand this power. So all these juggernauts with their incredibly powerful entourage, and each of them has their own entourage. All of these are directly responsible for the fact that other nations do not stop electrocution of 2-year-olds in their bed, which takes place in Israel for many decades now, and it can continuously happen. And as I said, and I said it again, it happened to my daughters since they were 2 years old in Shoam, and this was operated by their neighbors, all financed by the American people, by American taxpayer. And when they reached school, the conditioning continues in primary school by their teachers. The condition that later in their life will put them, presumably, I don't know if it's work. For me, it's, manifestly, it didn't at least not completely work, because I do not do what they want, but they keep using this psychological trigger that presumably are imbued on me. So I don't know if it's always work, but from their perspective, it's clear that the intention of these triggers is to make this person totally under the command of the intelligence community. So every piece of shit in the street would be able to do anything they want to them, and control them just by saying a couple of words. And also, so they will not be able to ever even contact the police, because a major part of this conditioning is that even the word police, and certainly the look of a police officer and the sound and look of siren would be incredibly a psychological terror to these people. That's why I've spoken about it so much. And I've documented that this is documented heavily in for 4 years now, in so many places in this earth, that wherever I go, now I'm under house arrest, but before I was under house arrest, wherever I go, I always there are sirens and police. Many times it's not really police officers and police cars. Many times it's police cars that are not really police cars. It's old police cars that are not that are now not used by the police, because for some time they change older police cars. But the Shabak have all fake police cars, but they don't. The Shabak do not update their. It's a mock fake police cars, but they do not update it. So from time to time you see a bunch of police cars. Many times you see it together. You see many times they want to want you supposedly a group of police cars. But you see, one police car, it looks like a design from the 80s, one design from the 80s, 90s, one design from the the 2000s, and one design from 10 years ago. But none of them look like current police car, and they are all together. And sometimes you see a police car which is custom, because people of the Shabak are the people in Mad Max. Nothing they like more. There is nothing that they like more besides rape than customing their car. So there is supposedly a police car with a ton of lights. 50 like red and light cars, like I mean, all over the place, and it's like sometimes they look like it looks like a tower of lights. I mean, it's something that I mean, incredible. There's not, I mean, no police car in the world looks like that. But I mean, in the eye of the 10 years old mental age adult that drives the car, he thinks like, what can make like the robots be afraid of this mock police car? Let's put more red and light cars, so it will be like more impressive, to show more presence. And this is actually what's documented very much in every single time. Like I mean, every stage that like I posted, like you see those both like mock police cars from like I mean from the 80s and 90s, like I mean suddenly appear like I mean in 2022, 2023 around you, or I mean alternatively police cars that I mean that have like ton of like lights like all over the place, like I mean like they are like I mean they look like I mean the framework like of like a rock like an open garden, like I mean like under the sky rock like show, like I mean, you know, ton of like lights, very strong lights, red light, like and white, like I mean, all over the place, and which I mean, it's kind of like I mean, it's to say that this is ridiculous is understatement. So you have it all the time. You see it all the time, all over you, because I mean, according to the ID, you are, I mean, as one of the subclass, the subhumans, you should be afraid of police because this was imbued in you while you were still a child in school, and even before that, since you were 2 years old, using electrocution. So we'll never be able even to contact the police. So everyone will do, the Shabak and Mossad can do whatever they want to you, like use you as a slave, rape you in any possible way. This is going on in Israel for many, many years now, for many decades. This is not new and not an isolated incident. This is a part of the Israeli special institution for many, many years, and a way to subjugate the subhumans in Israel. And of course, my daughters are also part of this now, and they were part of this since they were 2 years old. And this is usually done when they are at home. This is done by their neighbors, as I said, all of them, financed by the American people, the American taxpayer in Shoam, 41 Kukia Street, when they lived there for 4 years, since they were 2 and 3 to 6 and 7 respectively. By the way, it should be mentioned that one of the neighbors in this apartment, one of them is the people that were in charge of this operation. When my daughter Hila reached like 6 years old, she started to study in Nitzanim school in Shoam, and you know who is the teacher, like the mechanechet, the main teacher that teaches there, like Hebrew and cheshbon, like mathematics, Eliraz Sadeh, which was one of the neighbors in 41 Kukia Street. Like one of the people that actually pressed the buttons of the electrocution when she was 2 years old, and later, when she became 6 years old, now this woman is their teacher in primary school. This is reality in Israel. Emet dibarti. You can take this video to the police and I would say Emet dibarti. I spoke the truth. This is the truth. You can judge me. You can say whatever you want, but this is the truth. This is reality. It is done by electrocution, and it's done since the subhumans are babies, and it was done to my daughters since they were 2 years old in Shoam, of course, continuously, and of course it's done to me all my life and continuously. I mean, since forever and ever, and only with the help of God. Much of it did not had the required mental effects, even though it's torture by itself. I mean, it's a physical torture that is, I mean, it caused many physical harm, like to me for all my life, and of course it also caused physical harm to my children. But they don't care. Of course, it manifested in their health, like it's with evidence of both of my children, my daughters, and of course this is manifested in my health, like throughout all my life, and still like that. But with the help of God, at least for me, it didn't like produce the required mental results. It's a torture. I mean, it's an unbelievable torture, but it didn't produce the mental results. That's why, I mean, you see this video now. Of course, I mean, if they could have use me as the robots, I mean, probably I couldn't have report to you and do all this research and all those other experiments and artwork and everything else, etc. So yes, I mean, they didn't. I mean, what they wanted. But yes, they tortured me, and I'm suffering all my life. And yes, they managed to make me a very poor, like penniless person, even though you know very well that I could have been incredibly rich in so many ways, and I do not lack any education or intelligence or knowledge or professional experience or military experience or whatever, or best academic prestige. I studied in the best prestigious program in Israel, in Israel Academy, but yes, I'm now poor and I live in homeless hostel for homeless, because yes, they managed to subjugate me to the fullest extent, and they managed to make me to put me under their boot, because if the whole state is against you, you don't have any chance. But no, they didn't manage to. The psychological triggers, manifestly, they do not work on me. Maybe, and I think this is probably due to the help of God, because I understand that it works on other people, because otherwise, why do they keep trying to do it? Otherwise, it could have been absurd, because all of them try to do it all the time. This is their main weapon, all the time. And now they do it to my daughters, starting, since almost 5 years ago, starting 2 years old, using electrocution when they are in their bed. They live with me half the time. Now I'm under arrest. I do not see them at all. But of course, they frame me, of course. But yes, they framed me because they wanted me to be their whore, and so they did everything they can. So now I'm under arrest for a crime that I did not commit. But my children live with me for 4 years, more than 4 actually, for 5, almost since they were born, in joint custody, half the time. So half the time when they were with me, they were subjected to this electrocution in their bed, of course in the kitchen, of course in the living room, where they've seen television, and have done prepared homework and everything else. So at least half the time, and maybe also it was like that while they were in their mother's apartment. I don't know. I can't say, but certainly it took place all the time that we lived in Shoham for 4 years. And certainly this was operated by the neighbors. They have what they call the oven, which is kind of it's kind of like a radiation that is placed in the framework of the apartment, and they have sonic attacks, and they have electrocution. And everyone that wants to take me to court, I will say emet dibarti. I spoke the truth. This is the truth. It is used by the Shabak, and it is used by Shabak for many decades now. Of course, with minor updates throughout the years, but many decades, in order to electrocute children and to condition them to all sort of in all sort of ways. So when they will be adults, they will do whatever the Shabak tells them, and they will not even be able to call the police, because one of the main conditioning is against the police. This is done by the neighbors, and at least in our case, one of these neighbors, financed by the American taxpayer. Later, when my daughter was 6 years old, she became her teacher in primary school. Of course, this continues in primary school, because this is one of the best places to actually conduct this conditioning, even better than in the apartment, because they have even more sophisticated way to do it in primary school. So this is continued. Now it's between this is summer vacation, but supposedly September 1, my daughter Hila will start second grade with the same teacher, Eliraz Sadeh, and she will be subject to another year of conditioning by the same woman that did it to her since she was 2 years old, using electrocution. And my older one, Orin, will start third grade in the same school, of course, with her teacher, Livanash, which of course will do the same, because that's the way it is for many, many decades. This is reality. I will do whatever I can to avoid it, but what can I do? I'm under arrest. I cannot even see my daughters. Certainly I cannot do anything to get them out of Israel. But this is reality in Israel right now. And these carriers and the other 9 that the Americans have do not move an inch to prevent this reality. So by definition they are there to allow this reality to happen, because perhaps other nations, even ones significantly weaker than the Americans, would have wanted to use their significantly weaker but still, somewhat powerful military forces to prevent this cruelty, to prevent this abomination, to delete this abomination from the face of the earth. And maybe they don't do it because they are afraid of the Americans, because they say to themselves, we know, the Americans, they are fully aware of the situation. They are paying the people that actually doing the electrocution. So they are financing the people that electrocute these 2 years old children. So it's not like that they only need to fear, like presumably this nation needs to fear from the IDF, from the Israeli military. They also need to fear from these 11 carriers, because the Americans know about the situation, so they need to fear of these 11 carriers. They said to themselves, maybe if we will use our modest yet existing military forces to try to stop this abomination from the face of the earth, we will have to confront the 11 most powerful machines of war that ever existed on earth, and all their entourage, that are extremely powerful in themselves. And they say to themselves, we don't have any chance against these weapons. So that's why they do not move arm and leg, because they said to themselves, maybe we could have used our forces to confront the Israeli military, and so this will stop. So the abomination will stop. But we cannot confront 11 super carriers and their entourage. And we know that very well that the Americans, it's not that they do not understand the situation. They are in charge of the situation. The taxpayer pays directly to the people that press the buttons. Literally so. They finance the people that actually press the buttons for the electrocution of these 2 years olds. This is not a metaphor, this is a fact, and it's not something that belongs to the 50s. It also happened in the 50s, and the 60s, and the 70s, etc., but it is belong to right now. Like since 2018 until 2022, when I lived in Shoam, and presumably later, now I do not live in Shoam. And the American pays for this. So it's not that they don't know. Not only that they know, they pay for this to happen. So any other state, when they think to themselves, can we prevent this from happening? They think about these 11 carriers, and they tell themselves, we cannot confront these 11 carriers and their entourage. They are far too powerful for us. And that's why they do not move arm and a leg. So these 11 carriers, these two, the Reagan and the HW, and then the 9 other Nimitz class, they were constructed in order to facilitate the situation, to make it happen, so the 2 years old children will be constantly electrocuted in their sleep and in their apartment, because they were lamentably born in a state that wants them to be a slave for all their lives. This is the way to do it, by continuous torture, amazing physical torture and mental torture, even in their sleep, at their homes, that starts when they are 2 years old and continuously be done throughout all the years that they are in school. Of course, when they are at home, this is done by their neighbors, and when they are in school, this is done by their teachers. And at least in my case, at least one of them was actually the same person, both a teacher, one of the 2 daughters, and also a neighbor. This is reality, and because of this reality, and because nothing is changed at all, we will now increase the harmony of the seas. We will use our own satellites, because we have satellites, as you know. And as I said, initially, we will start with our most powerful satellites and our best satellites from the technological point of view. We have much more than 8, and actually you know that. But we will use the 8 that are the most powerful. Actually, 5 are already they are already charging. They are already part of the attack. But I think in an hour or 2 I will add another one. think the next one will be Mercury actually. But there are already 5 that are used of the most powerful satellites. Of course, the ones that are colored are the ones that are in use. And I will use a 6th one, Mercury. Of course, when all the 8 are used and still we don't see a movement of, still not an arm or a leg has been demonstrably moved, still we don't need any demonstration of a movement of arms and legs, we will use more satellites because we will actually have much more than these 8. But these are our favorite. And of course they do what the best thing that they do, which is music. So let's start now. This will surely be very, I mean, if not fun, I will say that this will certainly or almost certainly enhance the empathy and the understanding of the how people of the earth are understanding the psychology of the strangers, of the robots. Or should I say, this will make the psychological connection between the two species much closer. We will now be able to understand our thought processes and our minds much better.